The eyes of the entire world were fixed upon Washington, D.C. on Saturday night. As the news broke of an active shooter incident at the White House Correspondents' dinner, the global news cycle ground to a halt. Social media feeds were flooded with grainy mobile phone footage of a hurried evacuation, and every major network launched into wall-to-wall coverage. We watched as the president was rushed from the room by a wall of Secret Service agents, the frantic energy of the scene hinting at the fear in the room. Even now, with the dust settling and reports confirming that Donald Trump was never in direct peril, the incident remains the singular focus of international discourse. It will be analysed, debated, and dissected for days, if not weeks. We'll hear about security protocols, the psychological state of the crowd, and the political implications of a few loud noises in a high security ballroom. The machinery of global media ensures that when a man of such power is even perceived to be at risk, the world is expected to hold its breath. But while the cameras were flashing in DC, a far more permanent and devastating tragedy was quietly being pushed off the bottom of the news scroll. Just 1 week ago, on a construction site in the UK, a 17-year-old lad named Shay Bladen went to work and never came home. For those of us in the demolition and construction trades, this isn't just another statistic. This was one of our own. Shay was at the very beginning of his journey, a young man described by those who knew him as genuine and caring. He had decades of life ahead of him, years of potential, and a family who expected him back for dinner. Instead, his life ended on a site, a fleeting mention in the local news before the world moved on to the next political scandal or celebrity tweet. Why are some lives treated as inherently more valuable than others? We're told from a young age that all lives are created equal, that every human being possesses an innate and equivalent worth. Yet the disparity in how we react to those two events tells a very different story. On one hand, we have a man who is aged and deteriorating before our eyes. Donald Trump is a figure defined by division, a man whose public life has been marked by petty cruelty and self-interest that seems to exclude the well-being of others. He represents the very pinnacle of power and ego. On the other hand, we have Shay Bladen. He possessed the quiet, unassuming value of a young person entering a hard-working trade. He represented the future of our industry. He didn't have a platform, a motorcade, or a press corps. He simply had his life, his character, and his work. Last night, Donald Trump slept easy in his bed. Despite the scare, he is unharmed and will return to his business of rhetoric and division without a mark on him. He'll continue to occupy the headlines and the halls of power. Shay Bladen, meanwhile, never got to say goodbye to his family. His seat at the table is now permanently empty. The business as usual for Shay's family has been shattered forever, and the world at large barely even noticed he was gone. In the construction and demolition industry, we understand the reality of risk. We know that we work in an environment where safety is paramount because the stakes are ultimate. Every time one of our own falls, it should be a moment of collective mourning and a catalyst for change. When a 17-year-old apprentice dies, it's a failure of the system that is supposed to protect the people who build our world. Yet there's a hollow feeling in seeing the global hysteria over a powerful man who was never actually hurt, while the actual death of a promising young worker is treated as little more than a footnote. It suggests a hierarchy of human value based on status, wealth, and notoriety, rather than the actual substance of a person's life or the potential they held. The media coverage would have you believe that the near miss in Washington is a greater tragedy than the direct hit on a construction site in the UK. They focus on the man who has everything and loses nothing, while ignoring the boy who had everything to look forward to and lost it all. Should the life of a divisive political figure who has already lived a long life of luxury and opulence carry more weight than the life of a lad just starting out in the trade? Shay Bladen was a member of our community. He was a son, a friend, and a colleague. His death is a profound loss to the fabric of our industry and to the family who loved him. The tragedy of Shay Bladen is not just that he died, but that his death is seen as less newsworthy than the safety of a man like Trump. It exposes a world that prizes the spectacle of power over the sanctity of life. We see the president being escorted away in a flurry of activity. Where was that level of concern, that urgency for Shay? Where is the international outcry for the safety standards that failed a teenager on a British building site? We're expected to care about the threat to a leader who cares for no one but himself, while the loss of a genuine and caring lad is treated as an occupational hazard. A 17-year-old boy with his whole life ahead of him is, by any moral metric, a more tragic loss than a near miss involving a man in his twilight years who has already left a stain on history. Shay Bladen deserved better. He deserved a world that valued his life enough to ensure that he came home from work. He deserved a society that mourned his passing with at least a fraction of the intensity it devotes to a political figure's security scare. The cameras will stay on the White House for days. The pundits will talk until they're hoarse about threat levels and security breaches. But in the quiet corners of our industry and in the home of a grieving family, the true cost is being felt. One man walked away from a noise and another never walked away from his job. If we are to truly believe that all lives are created equal, then the death of Shay Bladen should be the headline that breaks our hearts and demands our attention. It's time we stopped looking at the podiums and started looking at the people standing next to us on site. Because the value of life shouldn't be measured by the power a person holds, but by the person they were and the future they should have had. Shay Bladen was one of us, and his life was worth infinitely more than a fleeting mention in the newspapers.